The 11th edition of the European House Ambrosetti CEO Dialogue on Southern Africa was held in Johannesburg, South Africa. A diverse group of leaders and experts from the African continent and the globe gathered to discuss key priorities, challenges, and areas of collaboration between Southern Africa and Europe. Discussions about opportunities for growth and expansion were the order of the day, while challenges of political stability and governance, economic diversification, and the progress of the African Continental Free Trade Area remained top of mind for industry leaders, investors, and entrepreneurs at the conference. In 2024, marking a decade of the summit's existence, it was rebranded as the European House Ambrosetti CEO Dialogue on Southern Africa, a new name that reflects the evolving focus and scope of the event. The European House Ambrosetti and TIHA Group presented data from the 2024 Global Attractiveness Index Africa. The index, which was launched in 2013, is specifically designed to assess economic attractiveness in Africa. TIHA CEO and managing partner Valeria Demoli informed that the Global Attractiveness Index Africa showed that South Africa was the top destination for investment, up from second place last year. He spoke to us on why South Africa and Gauteng remain the destination of choice for investors in Africa.
Gauteng is very similar to Lombardy, which is the Milan and Lombardy, is the region and the city where we are headquartered with our 300 colleagues based there. And there are many similarities. Gauteng is 1/3, actually 35% of the entire South Africa GDP. You have the largest stock exchange of all Africa, more than 1 trillion market cap overall. 21% of the listed companies are foreign-owned companies, which means that you are in open markets already, not because of TEA, but because of the nature of the industry and the financial institutions here. 30% of the GDP in Gauteng is related to financial institution sector. The youth population, you have 50 million people in the region, and the average age is in the order of 20 years old. So huge attractiveness. You have good universities, good talents, a lot of possibilities for many different industries and sectors. These are the reasons why we are so excited to be partners of the Gauteng Investment Authority and the Gauteng region within South Africa.
And just before I let you go, I want to touch on your point in terms of capacity building. And you specifically outlined the potential opportunity of Africa being a young continent. What is the importance of the removal of trade barriers or the introduction of the African Free Trade Agreement in terms of increasing those two incentives or those two goals that you outlined that could bolster African economies?
Well, of course, it's very important. You know, business community, investors, entrepreneurs, they are all practical people. They hate bureaucracy. They hate duties. They hate excessive VAT plans. They hate to be overloaded with complicated bureaucratic environment. So to have a common agreement, to have a simplified de-bureaucratic platform and ecosystem, it's very relevant to attract investment, to attract entrepreneurs, that they can do their best. You need entrepreneurs to live alone, to respect the law, to respect the rules, to respect the people and the employees, which of course they will do, but then debureaucratize the most as you can.
According to the AFDB, Africa, despite its low contribution to greenhouse gas emissions, remains the most vulnerable continent to climate change. The need for a just energy transition took a central focus alongside dialogue around sustainability and building Africa's food systems and security. The discussion on critical raw minerals and new industrialization explored the vulnerabilities in supply chains, sustainability considerations, and technological advancements.
We came actually to discuss and to explain the position of Congo on the critical minerals, and specifically what Entreprise Générale du Cobalt that I'm leading is doing actually on the ground on the critical minerals, specifically cobalt, copper, and tantalum.
So I really want to expand on that point in terms of Congo's position as an exporter of those minerals. One, we know it's an opportunity for growth in the country, but growth is not certainly translating at a pace perhaps that would favor the cost of doing business. Just inform us as an operator in the region, what are some of the challenges you are facing within the country?
No, we have big challenges in terms of infrastructure on also the poverty and the population. So we think that it's an opportunity actually to work to make sure that these rich country in terms of resources can be translated also on richest for the population. And that's the challenge we are working as Entreprise Générale du Cobalt to make sure also that we all the artisanal worker can be correctly paid and also can do their work in a correct way in terms of standards and also of protection.
And I want to just draw back in terms of value addition or beneficiation. Are there inroads or progress being made to ensure it's just not the traditional structure of exporting raw material and no industrialization or processing coming after that?
No, the target of the government is to make sure that we can transform as much as possible in the country. That's why we have many initiatives in terms of training, of education, but also of infrastructure. That's why we are invested a lot in energy, in roads, and in railways to make sure that that riches can be translated in riches also for the population.
And lastly, why do you think it's important for gatherings like this that seek to strengthen ties between Africa and Europe?
No, we as DRC, I explained that we have around 60% of reserve of cobalt and tantalum. We have a responsibility toward the world. That's why it's important to make sure that we produce some commodities which are clean, which are sustainable, and to make sure that also that we communicate on what we are developing on the ground.
Since the TRCO dialogue started in 2014, Italy's foreign direct investment to the Southern African development community and towards South Africa has more than tripled, with South Africa's share accounting for 2/3 of the current 2.2 billion euros. However, despite these numbers, impediments such as infrastructure challenges and logistical difficulties remain major hurdles to fostering growth and operational efficiencies in South Africa.
If I could ask you, Saki, we talk about investment and fixed investment, domestic and foreign, but you don't invest in a country or in Gauteng. You actually invest in a local authority. You invest in a city or a local authority, and the infrastructure in so many of our municipalities and metros is woefully inadequate. How does GDA think about that?
Yeah. So thanks, Yako. And I think the conversation now about attitudes is probably where a lot of what we're dealing with is, because even the perceptions about what's investable, where you can invest, and maybe let me just talk about South Africa, which is, where I live. I think a lot of business leaders don't think they have a responsibility beyond their companies. So they talk in annual reports about sustainability, but in real terms, there isn't always either putting back or taking the risks that they should take. While I think government and government leaders, there's a lot of responsibility that resides there, there's also a lot of responsibility on ourselves. And I'll make a couple of examples. We have Discovery in South Africa, which is a medical aid company that ran a campaign to fix potholes. Of course, they're a private sector company. The reason they did that is because they probably were getting a lot of claims on people whose tires were getting damaged, but they were contributing to public good. in what they were doing. And I think we get a lot of perceptual issues about what investment can happen and what investment can't happen. And we have a very interesting political system as well in South Africa, where almost every second or third year you have an election. So it's like now going to municipal elections after that. So you sit with this air of political uncertainty. Who's going to come back to office? Where can we invest? And we've seen in some of the municipalities where even where there's a coalition, it doesn't last long. So I don't think the solution is going to come out of us being comfortable that there's going to be order soon in that. I think we must work on it and try and solve it. But I think a lot of it is going to be on people taking certain actions which don't require government to do, and people can make money out of them. And maybe on some of those which require government, as I'm saying now, maybe coming back to my job, and where we need to work with the private sector is you identify something, it requires a solution, and we help you find that solution. And I'll make 2 examples on that. There's a business process outsourcing company. It's set up in Randburg. And one of the problems they had were taxes. Because these call centers operate almost 24 hours, because most of their clients are offshore, they have to arrange transport for people to go to work. And the taxes demand that it must be them who are transporting these individuals, irrespective of whether or not they are competitive on pricing, irrespective of whether or not there's safety. So we have to help them solve that problem in dealing with the taxi industry, both on policing and stakeholder management. So that's what we did in working with them to solve that problem. So that's where, you know, agencies like ours then have a role, is to identify that. This morning we met with individuals who are investing in what's called Tambo Springs. So it's a logistics hub. So they've already put in money, but their expansion requires a road to be done. And the road, government in the province started doing it, and somebody challenged in court on environmental issues, and they lost because this. And then they came back and said, well, we now need to know when government is going to continue the investment, because our expansion is dependent on it. So I think while the problems are big, part of it is that we've got to address them one day at a time. Let's work with willing players who are willing to solve certain problems, and we resolve them. Some may require national government, some may be complicated in terms of the laws. And I almost said the same question about the projects, because when you accelerate to this extent, I'm sure there's a cost to it, a physical cost that you pay a little bit more. And in environments where there's transparency, then someone says, well, if you gave this to a local company, it would have cost X amount. But, well, maybe it would also have taken 3 years and not 5 months to happen. So there's trade-offs in sometimes what we want and what we expect. But our responsibility, coming back to us being an investment facilitation agency, and I hope many others who work in government, is that in the midst of all of these problems, someone has got to do something. So we have to make it easier to solve some of these problems and work with the private sector where it is possible.
Look at our economic growth for Africa has been decent. Of late, we've seen one challenge begin to emerge, that of rising levels of debt. If you look at debt levels, if we go back to 2013, our debt levels were about 30% of GDP. Now we are up to 60% of GDP. As I speak, Zimbabwe's debt levels are at 65% of GDP. So clearly, this is an issue that is impacting growth, that is making it more difficult. If you overlay the current credit conditions globally, it does create a tough situation for most African countries. Even SDRs, which we receive from the IMF on an interest rate of 0.4%, now those SDRs are on an interest rate of almost 4.5%. It's not free money. If anyone tells that SDRs are free money, it's not. It's not free money, it's expensive money. We used to borrow at an average a rate of about 8% for most loans in Africa. If you look at the yield on Euro bonds a few years ago, but now we are paying easily 3 to 4% extra as African countries. So the credit conditions are tougher, and that makes then the debt situation even harder to deal with. Then coming to the issue of hydropower, I think that as a region, we need to see that challenge as a region. Mozambique has incredible hydropower. I think between South Africa, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Zambia, let's push investments into Mozambique. There are 3 or 4 gorges along the Zambezi River beside Kahora Bassa, which are ready for investment, and we'll be able to lower our cost of electricity down to about 4 or 3 cents per kilowatt hour easily. We have to invest in the wheeling infrastructure, in terms of transmission infrastructure. Again, the private sector again could look into that. So that's really my pitch on hydro, that we have to see it as a regional project. And we have great infrastructure in terms of the Southern Africa power pool, which is the most developed power pool in Africa.
We developed a manual for PPPs. And we set up systems that were clear, abundantly clear. The bankers, the lawyers, everybody was involved. Everybody signed off together on what the content of PPPs were. We lived through a period of dark years in this country when all of the initiatives taken like PPPs were abandoned, shredded. We don't want to go there. Somehow, there's something wrong with it. Now there's a crying out for PPPs. You've got to get back to first principles, sort it out, get those principles there and clearly understood, so that the private sector doesn't do what government ought to do. Government, local, provincial, and national, has a different set of responsibilities. If you hold their feet to the fire to ensure that they deliver on their commitments and their constitutional obligations, then what remains at the end of it is an opportunity for PPPs. It's not instead of doing what government has to do. And that means fiscal governance becomes fundamentally important in the equation.
My company is based in Mozambique, and the Mozambican Italian Trade Agency invited me to this very interesting event. Even if after so many years in this region, I think I know enough about the culture, the difficulties, the challenges, the potentials. I think that this is a way to try to maybe bring to people that are coming from Europe some very good insights of what is Southern Africa.
And what do you think it's important for dialogues like this that want to strengthen the partnerships between European interests with Southern African business and government?
Well, I think that it's very interesting that sometimes you hear people say, now we are Africa, it's very interesting, now is Africa. Well, for me, Africa was 1989, so 30 plus years ago. I hope that because in some way I'm feeling African, I have an African family, I develop a lot of things here. I hope they can try to come here in the way of a good, sincere development or mutual development. Because we know, I don't have to say anything to anybody, we know that Africa has been exploited for a long, and we know why. Resources are here, and actually other type of development like professional, like research has been done in other places. But as they said here, there is a lot of very good people and a lot of very good mind. I can tell you my associate in Mozambique, I wouldn't trade him for any European technicians. So let's hope that this will be maybe finally a different way for European or American or any other people to come here in a very positive exchange way of doing business.
I wanted to end off on that question about leverage for all the panelists, because we're nearly through, and it's a lovely positive question. What is it? Where do you have leverage where you can actually make the continent a better place and so on. Can I start with you, Rama?
Yeah, thank you. So, but I just give you a short example of what we did in Botswana, Zambia, and Namibia, especially. If you look at the agriculture sector in Botswana, it was very, very small as a percentage of the GDP. So what we did is that we started engaging with the farming community, and by the time it took me around 8 to 9 years, but in that 9 years, the contribution to the total horticulture came back from almost 10% to 70%. So we could register almost 4,000 farmers. We even, in partnership with Amazon, we developed an app, blockchain app, for them to start communicating with the trading community and the farming community. If you check the Facebook page of the Zambian president last year, he even mentioned Choppies to say that follow that example in creating a linkage between the trade and the farming community. So those are the leverages what we did. Thank you.
Saki, any thoughts on where you've got real leverage in Gauteng and can move the needle?
Yes, well, for me, I mean, I literally get paid to leverage the position of government. So that's exactly what we do. So, you know, we worked with Pietro, for example, on this platform, because they already have a platform that exists, and we can use it to share ideas, but to also communicate what government can do. So really, for us, we are the go-between in making things easy for government. So it's literally leveraging that access that we have. So that's why we exist.
Thank you. Trevor?
You know, thanks, Jaco, and question's fundamentally important. I don't want to provide any threat to the Cardinal's job. But for me, the best leverage comes out of ethics. You see, we mustn't treat life in business as a checkbox exercise. What do you want for ESG? And then we check the boxes and ignore the rest. It's when we inculcate values in the business, how you treat your customers, what you do, how you conduct yourself, especially when you think nobody's watching. Those kinds of issues, I think, will maximize what we do as a company, as a country, and perhaps as a continent. Thanks.
If I can wade in for my 2 cents worth on this topic, I think all companies have to look at how they can be relevant to the societies and the communities in which they operate. And of course, a lot of people immediately go to their CSI programs, their supplier development programs, and so forth. But it's my firm belief that if you do your business, we're a bank, if we really bank well in each country and really do our job well, that is the biggest leverage actually that we can deliver to each economy, rather than trying to do a whole lot of other things that we're not necessarily well qualified for on the side. So I think fundamentally, make sure your business is relevant to the community in which you operate, and don't rely on your social responsibility kind of programs as a crutch. But that would be my view, but I'm not on the panel. We're quite close to the end. Is there anything else that you would like to add at this point, Salim?
I think I want to make a comment about counter leverage, actually. If the governments are choosing right partners for their projects, I think the governments and the people of that country gains at the end of the day, because companies are forgotten over the time. Who built that stadium, who built this airport, but the leadership and that specific government's performance are the leverage for their own country. So this is, I think, very important, choosing the right partner.
It's a great point. Any concluding thoughts from you, Saki?
No, thank you. I think for me, I mean, these platforms help in sharing ideas and have access, but as someone who was in the public sector, and there's a time I had left it and come back, I think most people in the room who are South Africans think they have the luxury to only look at what is a problem. I think many things can be solved if people took risk in being in the public service, because often it is a risk, and contribute in solving some of these problems, because they're not going to go away. At least, I mean, Trevor, on top of being a Minister of Finance for many years, he still came back and was part of the investment envoy. And I think many of us find comfort in just criticizing. I mean, a lot of dinner tables, people know what is wrong, but very little is put forward on what can be done, or even taking your own time to contributing to change. So I'm hoping many people in the room will leave with a sense of responsibility to try and contribute to the change.
Great, thank you. Rama? Anything else you'd like to add?
Accessibility to the financial services and digital
Yeah.
payment solutions to the common man. So that will bring in formalization to the economy. Even a man selling coke on the roadside should be able to sell it digitally and transform that. Then the GDP numbers will automatically change, especially a country like South Africa, from the what is not counted.
Get rid of cash.
Yes, that will really change the landscape in this part of the continent.
And it is in many countries
Yes.
developing very quickly.
Very quickly. Very
Trevor, the
fast.
last word with you.
I want to remain friends with all of the organizers. I don't want to say anything more and extend my time.
And that's how we conclude this highlight special of the European House Ambrosetti CEO Dialogue on Southern Africa. We hope to see what lies on the horizon for Europe and Southern African trade ties in 2025.